Hey guys, welcome to Connect with Katie. I'm so glad that you can join me. I just wanted to let you know the program that I use for my awesome podcast. It's called Anchor. This program is free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. Also, will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Also, you can make money with no minimum listenership. Best thing is everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Hey guys, welcome to KT Talk Show. This is your host, KT. It is a lovely Friday afternoon. It's beautiful and sunny outside, and I have an awesome, amazing, very talented in my eyes guest, Tracy Brinkmann. He started what caught my eye was the Dark Horse podcast, and we connected through Facebook, on the podcast group. And that is where we introduced ourselves. We got a conversation going. I got to hear your story. I told you my story. And I just thought that your story was absolutely inspiring. And, you started this podcast to help these entrepreneurs that, they went down a dark path and they're like, where do I go from here? What am I doing? And so Tracy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then, we'll talk about how you started your podcast and what it means to be a dark horse.
Sure. Thanks so much, Katie, for having me. And I hope, I think we all have those challenges that we go through. And if anyone at all is able to get even the smallest bit of inspiration from my story, I'm totally golden with that. And I'm not sure if you want me to just jump right into that story and share with folks, or if we want to, dive down a different road first. I'm open to any opportunities here.
Why don't we talk about why you started the Dark Horse Entrepreneur first? Let's start there.
Sure.
How that got started.
Absolutely. I've been lucky enough over the course of my life to work with some amazing companies at all different levels. I mean, we're talking about I've worked with the Coca-Colas of the world, the Home Depots, the Front Gates, the Victoria's Secrets, the David Bridals, so all those names everyone recognizes, which I'm very blessed in that regards. And then I've also worked with some of the the smaller companies in the world, the mobile media enterprises and the legendary Whitetails, and across each of those opportunities, I gained so much knowledge, and some of them were on the cusp, or some of them were in the middle of a dark tunnel of my roller coaster of life. But in each and every one of them, I was able to find some real gems of education. And most recently, as I feel like my life is kind of in a good spot, I'm in a good place. I stumble, I fall just like anyone else, but I'm at the spot where it's like, okay, look, I think I have some knowledge that could help some folks out there that are maybe going through this whole COVID thing going, good gosh, I can't get my business off the ground, or I haven't even started it. And like I like to say in the podcast, as is, if you're looking to start, restart, kickstart, or just start leveling up your game, that's the message I want to bring. And that's through, like I said, all the things I've gone through, and heck, even the things I'm still going through, because I think one of the great opportunities in life is to keep learning. So if you're able to say, look, here's what I've learned. Oh, and by the way, here's what I'm still learning. So I may be one day, I may be 1 week, I may be a year or a decade ahead of you. I may be 1 day, 1 week, a month, a year, a decade behind you. And for those opportunities, I'm going to bring someone on the show who's gone through it, and we're both going to learn at the same time. So I am a dark horse. I'm the person that people didn't think was going to succeed in a lot of ways. Obviously the moms and the dads of the world thought I was going to, but there was those people that when I would tell them my dreams, they would laugh at me like, okay, sure. They're thinking I'm not even going to show up on the track, like I say. And so I'm looking to help those out there that have that same feeling. Like, I know I could do this. they just need that little push, that little oomph in the right direction.
Yeah, this is exactly why I brought you on, because, I was that person at one point in this, and we talked about this. I was that person where I was like, man, I've went through, quite a bit, and like you even said in your podcast, things that people could think it's unimaginable to go through,
Hmm.
or I haven't gone through things that people have gone through. We all have these different life paths, and we have these different roller coasters that we
Uh-oh.
go on, which I want you to talk about more. But um once we find, a mentor or somebody that can kind of guide our way, it just goes uphill from there, right? And we might
Absolutely.
fall down a little bit like the roller coaster, but we always find a way to get back up. So that kind of leads me to the next thing. So I would love for you to kind of talk about that, that roller coaster of life.
Yeah, that one, that's a really good analogy. As you well know, I told the story for my life. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had lots of ups and laps and downs and rights and lefts. I mean, coming out of the military, I had a great set of skills, and I started a computer programming business, and I was doing computer programming before the dot-com boom. And I was living high on the hog, feeling really good about myself, making bank, as they say. And I made some really awful choices in in doing things and how I spent my time and who I spent my time with. And it led me down that fast downhill slide of the roller coaster of life, and right into that dark tunnel of, drugs and alcohol and partying too much. And, even to the point where I wasn't just doing them, I was out there peddling them, so
Yep.
there was a period of time where I was out there just doing the things like you see on television. And after probably, I think it was a weekend's worth of partying, if I'm honest, I know it was more than one day, I came home to my condo to find my place had been ransacked. And as you know, if you listen to the episode, it
Mhm.
wasn't criminals or it wasn't thieves that kicked open my door and messed up the place. It was the police. So all these choices I had made were coming to a head, and like I say, it
Mhm.
was just like you see on the television. I mean, there was just no exaggeration. Furniture's tipped over, stuff's all over the place, cereal and instant rice boxes are emptied out all over the floor and up on the counters. And I was like, oh my God. And the oh my God was really exaggerated by the fact that I had a newborn baby in my life. She was probably, I know she was less than 6 months old at that point. So here it was, I was about to lose everything I owned and everything that meant, everything to me, which was at that point my daughter. And so I decided to make new choices, better choices about cleaning up my act, cleaning up my life, and of course, cleaning up my body from all the junk I had been, inserting in my nose and drinking
Mhm.
down my gullet. And with the great help of my mom and dad, and a gentleman I call my brother and his wife, they helped me up out of this particular dark tunnel. And I was, sailing again. And I went out, and because I didn't have that enough self-confidence to jump right in with the level of skills I had from a job standpoint,
Mhm.
I started taking day jobs, doing day labor, working in
Yeah.
warehouses, doing temp jobs just to feel good about myself again. And that started, that
Yeah.
positive climb. It was like if you get up every morning and you take one step in the direction that you want to go to become the person you want to be, or have the relationship that you want to
Right.
have, or have the job, or the business you want to have, then that's a good day, right? And so I just kept
Yeah.
stacking those steps every day, one after another, and ended up, having the confidence and landed a job with Coca-Cola that took me to their headquarters. And over the course of the next few years, you know, uh, did what I'll call a meteoric rise. I had a number of promotions in a very short time, and ended up, running the planning and marketing division of Coca-Cola North America, doing the inventory planning. So pretty much, if it had the Coca-Cola brand on it, it came through our shop, and mine and my team was tasked with managing all that inventory. We did the 99 the Olympics that landed in Atlanta. All that stuff came through our shop. So it was I was at the high of my life. And then another roller
Yeah.
coaster tunnel comes along, and my second daughter is born, and she needs a liver and small bowel transplant. She was born with, normally, if you're born, you probably have, my numbers may be wrong here, so if there's any doctors listening, they can educate me on the real numbers. She was born with about 23 centimeters of small intestine, and normally you're born with over 200. So she didn't have enough
Oh my
of gut,
goodness.
enough intestine to sustain life. So one of the operations they did was to install what's called a TPN line, that fed her the nutrients through a bag straight into the artery that went into her heart to pump through her system. Which is awesome. It kept her alive while they tried to do things. Literally, they tried to dissect her intestine. Literally, layman's terms, split it in half, make a smaller version, connect it end to end, and that still wasn't enough. Over the course of her first 3 months of her life, she went through about 6 different surgeries to try
Wow.
and help her, be normal, quote unquote, but to no avail. They did, however, get her stabilized, and she got on the donors list, and then began that wait. And, as a parent, all you can do is sit there and is just that, wait. And wait is a 4-letter word. But then again, so is hope, and I kept hope. And I went out and I talked to anybody that would listen, and probably quite a few people that didn't want to listen, about my message of being an organ donor. So I was out there talking to ladies auxiliaries and business breakfasts, and anybody, like I said, anybody that would listen. A group of two or a
Yeah.
group of 2,000. I actually got invited to go speak at a doctors and nurse convention up in Philadelphia,
Oh
and
wow.
that I through this time, trying as it was, I learned my real passion for connecting with an audience. Back then, it was all
Yes.
being in front of an audience and talking to them. Was I nervous? Were there butterflies? Well, yeah, of course. But I was able to make them say "fly in formation" in my stomach while I stood in front of folks, and started to feed off that feedback and the input I got back from the audience across things. So that started me doing other things in the speaking realm. But coming back to my daughter and what she was going through, she got so sick that literally at one point I pulled the doctor aside and asked the question that, as a parent, I didn't want to ask, but I had to know the answer.
Hmm.
She had gone through a just wicked downslide in her health. And if you have a kid, you'll understand what I say when you look at your child and something's wrong, right? They're not being themselves.
Yeah.
Their eyes look different. They're talking different. Obviously, she wasn't speaking at just 18 months old, but you could tell there was
Hmm.
something different in how she was carrying herself. So I asked the doctor, if organs were available right now, would she survive the operation? And he gives me doctor speak, and we went into a janitor's closet. They said, "Look, just you and me. No one else is around. Forget the lawyers, the insurance companies." And I
Yeah.
re-asked the question, and finally got him to admit he didn't believe she would survive the operation. Okay, good. Not what I wanted to
Hmm.
hear, but now I know. I got a baseline.
Right.
Now the next question is, do you see her getting better anytime soon? Again, honestly, the response was, the odds were against it. So the tough choice was leave her on the respirator that was now keeping her alive, or
Hmm.
unplug. And you battle. There's no, if anyone's going through anything like this, there's no right or wrong answer to me, right? It's a
Right.
personal choice you have to make.
Hmm.
And for me, if there was no chance of her getting better and she wouldn't survive the operation, then if I left her on the respirator, it was selfish. I was keeping her here for me, not for her, right?
Hmm.
So made that tough decision. They disconnected. I held her in my arms and literally rocked her to sleep one last time. And excuse me,
It's
was
okay.
lucky enough to be able to tell her all the things that she taught me in her short time here on earth. She was only around 18 months, but she taught me so much about looking at life through her eyes and seeing things from a different perspective and
Yeah.
enjoying every minute you have today. And so from then on, I've had that perspective. Okay, how do I do this? How do I keep learning? How do I keep? She had this really cool thing when, if you've ever seen the movie E.T., how E.T.
Hmm.
Puts out that one index finger and would touch something with it, and of course he was healing when he did that. Well, when Krista saw something new that she had never encountered before, she would even if it was a little stuffed animal, she'd put out that one
Yeah.
finger and she would touch it tentatively. And then once she felt it
That's
was
cute.
safe, then she would, it would take it in. And of course, like baby, it went right in her mouth. But
Yeah.
so it was that always everything was an inspection. It was like, oh, I need to check this out. Oh, right. She had this unique way of doing it.
Yes.
So
Check it
I
out first.
exactly. I keep trying to look at life like that, right? Going down new avenues, learning new things. So as I
Yeah.
went through all those companies I mentioned earlier, I kept trying to learn new things and find out how I could be the best at what it was I was tasked with, while still learning things that interested me. So while I may have been in a planning role, I went off and I was learning marketing. And then in another organization, I may have been in a marketing role, but I went off and I learned, okay, how are you doing the website? And I'm over here doing this.
Yeah.
I'm learning, so you keep learning new things because I kept trying to do that. How does it affect my job? How is what you're doing affecting what I'm doing, and vice versa? So if I can do my job better,
Right.
make your job better, so and I just kept doing that. And so when it came to starting my own company, I do a digital marketing and reputation management. It's like, okay, how can I take what I do and make their company better, or maybe even not so much make it better, but help the customer see just how good they are, right, at this and at that, at dental, or at
Yeah.
being a chiropractor, or at being a masseuse. Or the next step I found as I started engaging with these companies is, oh wow, you're not even tapping into the whole, we all know about market share. There's a lot of companies out there that haven't thought about wallet share. So if you're
Yeah.
let's say a salon, and you have a customer that comes in to get her hair done. All right. Well, you've got that wallet share. Well, what about maybe she could use a manicure or a pedicure or a massage or some
Yeah.
cosmetics, or, there's a number of
Yep.
other things, and it may be a one-off sale or it may be a repetitive sale, and building on that so that they think about you as that go-to person, and they spend more of what's in their wallet with you. So hence the term wallet share. I'm sorry, I got off on a
Yeah.
little tangent there, but obviously you see
It's
I get
okay.
real passionate about it.
Yeah, I love it though. That's why I love, I wanted you on here because you have a lot of passion in your voice when you talk, and I think it's very inspiring for a lot of people, honestly.
Yeah. And I think to loop back to get back, that was a long-winded answer, right, with the story in there. But those dark horses
Oh,
that
that's
are out
okay.
there, there's so many of us, and you may not feel that you're a dark horse, but if you've ever had that moment where you're like, I know I can do this, but you feel like either the world or people or customers or your job is kind of pitted against you, then that's when I say, when
Mhm.
I mean dark horse. And we kind of all feel like that one time or another. And those are the
Of
folks I
course.
try to tap on the shoulder and say, hey, here's some ideas that, maybe you're ready for today, maybe you're not ready for till tomorrow. And
Mhm.
they just don't encompass do this, do that, and your job gets better. It's do this and do that. And maybe it's just your mindset. Maybe you just feel better about yourself today,
Exactly.
you know, because I think
Exactly.
one of the big things that so many entrepreneurs um, uh, miss out on, they get so focused on what it is they're trying to build that they forget
Yep.
about that amazing thing between their ears. And
A
that's
hundred
not just
percent.
not about just being smart, right? It's about being
Mhm.
um, understanding who you are and why you're doing it. Everyone, we've all heard the motivational guys that say, know your why and you'll figure out the how. And I think if we take one step back before you even understand your why, is to understand
Exactly.
who you are. Because if you
Yes,
don't know if
100%.
you can't answer who you are, who is Katie, right? And if I asked you that, I think
Exactly.
and we had this discussion, you could tell me, I know
Yeah.
who Katie is. I know who Tracy is. So now that you know who you are, now why comes into the mix, because sometimes
Yep.
folks will go and answer that why question and the why doesn't quite align with who they are. So the why will only last for a little while. And that comes back to motivation, right? While you're motivated and you're fired up,
Yep.
you see the new cool course that's online or some cool new tool, right? That whole shiny object syndrome. Well, that's going to pull you to motivation of your why. But if it doesn't align with your who, that's going to fade. But if it comes from
Yeah.
the core of who you are, yeah, I'm the kind of person that wants to get out there and help people do better. All right, cool. Or I'm the kind of person, I love chitty chatting with folks as I do their hair. Right on. You should be in the salon business. But if you're good at doing hair and you don't like engaging in conversation, maybe there's a different niche that you should be in. You know what I'm saying? You could probably
Yeah.
still do hair, but maybe you need to do hair for folks that aren't chatty. I don't know. I would
Right.
be guessing at that point, right? It's
Mm.
like one of my best friends out in California. She's a masseuse by trade. She's a physical therapist, and she goes around to different businesses and private homes, and exercises her trade. But she is a natural person. She likes to engage in that conversation. So she makes the customer more comfortable as she's chatting with them, and she honestly wants to know about them. So the next time she comes
Yep.
back and she's gonna lay you down and start working on your shoulders, Katie, she's gonna say, so you were telling me about this podcast you did, how's it still going? You know what I'm saying? She's actually going to connect
Yeah.
with you as a person, even though
Yeah.
you are a customer. And I think if we can keep all that in line with what we're trying to do
Yes.
as entrepreneurs and as people, it will just be amazing.
Yeah. I think no, and I was as you were talking, I was really thinking about this as entrepreneurs, I think a lot of like what gets misconstrued is that why, like know why you're getting into this and
Mm-hmm.
but really it's that mindset. You have to have your mindset in the right direction. You have to have your mindset not even in the right direction because honestly like we go back to the roller coaster thing, it's always going to be this way, that way,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But as long as you have some sort of idea of like when you getting yourself into a situation, okay, how am I gonna, is this gonna benefit me in some way? What am I gonna learn from this? What am I gonna take away from this? And how is this gonna help me build my mindset and build me to be a better person so that I know my why and I can tell people about who I am. So I think that
Exactly.
was really, really important for you to note that because I do think that a lot of young people forget that. And it's not even young people. You can be as old as you want to be and still be an entrepreneur because like you said, it's not even about age to me. It's about your mindset. Again, going back to that. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
to
that's
that
perfect.
point, you heard the couple of dark tunnels that came in my life. I mean, I had dark tunnel number 3 that I haven't even talked about in my shoot late 30s. So life is like you said, the roller coaster. It's going to keep coming at you. I probably have another dark tunnel in front of me. I think the last one
Yeah.
that I went through was a divorce and a bankruptcy. And then shortly back behind that, the gentleman I was mentioning earlier that I've known since I was 14 years old, my brother Robbie, right? He passed away, right? And he was
Oh
4 years
goodness.
younger than I am. And I'm not
Mhm.
old. I mean, I'm in my mid
No.
50s, so I'm not old by any stretch of the imagination. And it was like just gone. And that just
Mhm.
took my knees out from under me. I was lucky enough at that point to have an amazing woman in my life. She's now my wife. So I had a good support system there. and Robbie's ex-wife, we're still friends to this day. So she was there. So, it's surrounding, again, it comes back to, and I think this applies in so many realms of our lives, whether it's,
Yes.
spirituality, business, relationships, or like you said, just yourself, your health and your mental wellness comes back to connections. One of the
Yep.
episodes that I did, I think it was episode 5 on my podcast, was John Tellerico. I mean, he's all about that
Yeah.
connections, and he does it in 3 ways.
Yeah.
He says, connect with yourself. So this comes back to the who we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Connect with your message is number 2, which is kind of like, all right, well, this is me saying my why, right? And then connect with your market. Well, those are those relationships like you and I. I will be chatting with you for years now, I'm sure, and you may come up with something and say, you know what, Tracy might know how to handle this, or he's talked about this on his podcast. You'll hit me up on
Yeah.
Facebook or whatever, and I'm cool. That's part of that relationship, right? Who knows where you and I will go after this, and we're both along for the
Exactly.
ride. Maybe our cars will ride side by side on the roller coaster for a while. Then we'll split apart, and
Yeah.
then we'll come and get together again, and we'll go, "Hey, dude, what's up? How you been?" Right?
Yeah.
It's all about those relationships that we build through life and through our business,
Yeah.
and the better you can build those and not burn them, ladies and gentlemen. It,
Yes.
the more I think, the more you're going to get out of it.
Yeah. Oh my, yeah, that is, you are just hitting it like spot on, especially with the relationships. Like once you build those solid, positive, uplifting relationships with people, you really only start to attract those people in your life. I
Hmm.
mean, and like you said, you're still going to go, you're still going to have your own dark tunnels. You're still going to have your ups and downs of your own, but those relationships, those solid, heartfelt relationships, really, that you connect with, you're always going to have that. And and when going back to having loss and losing people, that's unfortunately, or fortunately for, I guess, for some people, it's just a part of life.
Right.
That's just what happens. And it goes back to the mindset too. When those things happen, you have to know that life does go on and that we can keep pushing forward, and your life doesn't have to go on pause. You can.
Absolutely, and I think on that note, when it comes to those things, is like, and this is probably tough for a lot of, I'll say, I'm going to be gender specific for a moment. For a lot of men that grew up like I did, like my father was a 23-year man in the military. And he was
Mhm.
a 6'3" mountain of a man. So when I say sergeant in the military, that vision you get inside your head was probably exactly what my father was like. He was a an amazing bear of a man, but he had this
Yeah.
heart. He had this heart. He wanted to help anyone he could, and very good with his hands. So he'd go out. He's always doing things with folks. But when it comes to the little things like just simply saying, "I love you, son," was really tough for him for the longest
Mhm.
time. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I had his grandkids, was he even paused. I said, "You know what, Dad, I love you." And there was this long pause, and he looked at me and said, "I love you too." And it had probably been at that point at least a decade since I had heard it from him. And it wasn't that he didn't, because I knew he did. All the things he did in
Yeah.
action showed me that. And that was where he stood from, where he came from, as his father had taught him. I show you I love you by A, B, and C. That was his quote unquote language of love,
Yeah.
and his language of love and mine didn't always align. And so we butted heads as a result of that
Yep.
in my teen years, like so many of us do. So it's one of those, go back. We all have heard of the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have done
Yes.
unto you. Let's take it one step further and use the platinum rule and do unto others as they would have done unto themselves, right? So
Yes.
by taking a
100%.
moment, and if you're, again, this comes to building those relationships. If you want to build a relationship, you need to learn how they see the world, respect it, and you can still have a differing of opinion. That's cool. But when it comes to wanting to engage with them, you engage in how they engage. Are they more visual? Are they more kinesthetic?
Yeah.
Are they more auditory, right? So to put it in simple layman's terms, there are those folks that like podcasts. All right. Those folks are more auditory. There are those folks that would prefer to sit down in front of YouTube. Those folks are more visual. There are those folks that would much rather get on Zoom and see that face. And I'm trying to keep this into not technological terms. Those folks are probably more kinesthetic. They're more touchy-feely. So those three kind of give you a great example of, all right, now I know how this person kind of thinks. And you'll hear in the words they say, do they say words like hear or talk or feel? And that gives you those different cues of how they are. And if you can engage that person in how they prefer to be engaged, even if it's 180 degrees the opposite of yours, now you're building.
100%. Definitely. Yeah, and that's understanding, like you said, the differences between you, and understanding that you might just have to adapt to their way of learning, which is, we all are adaptable people, right? That's what human beings are. We're adaptable. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is being, adapt to our environment. And I always think too, when you before, because I'll admit I was in this like victim mentality of, oh, this person's doing this to me and this is making me this way. And, I was like that. And now I'm thinking, holy crap, Katie, like, you needed to get it together. Like, you had some things that you needed to work through. This was not everybody else. This was you taking things personally and understanding that they were just here to help you and here to help you learn, not tell you what to do, because being a Taurus, apparently you're stubborn and you don't want to hear anything. But that's all right.
I think if you went back to that Katie, right, if you were looking her in the face and tried to tell her that, she probably wouldn't hear you so well, right?
Exactly.
You would have to hear that from someone that you trusted unequivocally. And even then it might not come on so good. I remembered when I was going to marry the woman I ended up divorcing, there was probably about a decade of just pure torture in this relationship. And don't get me wrong, I'm not Mr. Perfect, and I'm not saying it's all her fault. I was, part and parcel to everything we went through in our relationship. But he told me, he pulled me aside when I announced that I was going to ask her to marry me. And he pulled me aside, and this is a relationship we had. He said, dude, listen, asshole, all right? If you marry that woman, your life's going to be hell. If you decide to marry her, this is the last time I'm going to say it. So he had that respect for me to say, all right, I'm going to tell you how I feel because I love you and I care about you. But if you go ahead and do it, I'm going to be back behind you 110%,
Yeah.
And those are the kind of relationships you want to have. And I didn't hear it, I understood what he was saying, but I didn't hear it. And now, I get about 10 years into the relationship, and I'm having a discussion with him about this. Obviously, it's before he passed away. I'm calling him on the phone to his brother. I'm in hell here, and he never once until we actually divorced said, "I told you so." Never said it. Never ever said it. He was always there to be the shoulder to lean on. He goes, I get it. That's just the kind of person she is, and she knows how to push your buttons, blah, 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 blah. He was always very supportive. He was always there to listen and offer advice, but never until it was all over with did he say, I told you so, which was freaking amazing.
Right. I mean, that's hard to find friends like that, or relationships like that. It really is.
It
really,
is. They're gold. But I think at the end of the day, if you're not willing to try and be that kind of friend, you're not ready to have that kind of friend. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, 100. And that's why I was laughing when you were like, build relationships, not burn them, people, we're not burning relationships. And I hate to admit it, but I was good at that. I was really good at burning relationships because I did what I wanted to do. I didn't want to hear what people had to say, tell me what to do, even if I knew it was wrong. And that, like you said, if you're not willing to be that friend, be that person, be that, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, then you shouldn't be in that relationship or
You're
trying
not
to be
ready
in that
for it,
relationship.
right?
No,
And it,
right.
and I
Yes, not
think you would
ready.
agree. I think you might agree with me 100%. It's not about being someone you're not, right? It's being authentic to
Right.
yourself, but still
Yes.
letting the other person be themselves, right?
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
asking
Yep.
Katie to be, Donna.
No,
I
right.
want Katie to be Katie so we can jam just like this, so we can do our thing.
Exactly.
You can hear me, I can hear you. And yeah, yeah, don't know. Don't even get me going on that one, right?
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not about you not being yourself and them not being themselves. It's you guys, like we just talked about, you guys just finding your differences, figuring out what makes you click, what makes me click, and then we mesh together. It's just
Yeah, I
exactly
mean,
how it works.
here's a great example. My ex sister-in-law, right?
Hmm.
Her and I are on. We agree on a lot of things in life. However, when it came to political views, we were polar opposites, right? And I
Oh,
won't
I
name
get that.
we weren't. I won't name parties, but as politics and church and maybe math nowadays masks are very volatile topics, right? Well, her and I
Yeah.
were able to, on a number of occasions, have intelligent conversation and we had opposing views. We were on polar opposites in the views. I heard her side. Okay, but what about this? And she would hear my side. Okay, well, what about that? And we educated each other not only on how we think, but why we think what we think. And there was no, well, you're a dummy. Oh, you're stupid. How could you think that? Oh, no way. We were able to actually have those
Mhm.
conversations and still be polar opposites. And that was one of those turning points for me. It was right after Krista had passed away, where I was like, you can do this, right? You don't have to be a puppet or a pawn or a player to have these kind of conversations,
Mhm.
because here we are just being ourselves, and I'm totally thriving on this. So it was about, okay, how do we get, I was really hungry at that point. How do I get more of that in my world? And that started me down, more of the personal development. I was already on it, but it started me down more of the personal development train of, okay, it's not just me educating myself and opening up my views. It's me educating others and helping them open doors that they're ready to open.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. Well, I think um what you have got going on is, I mean, like, and what you were saying earlier when you were like, I might be years behind you, hours ahead of you, days, wherever. We're all in different spaces and times in our life, right? And
Right.
we're all making progress in different areas. And I think, it's really cool because a lot of people that I've been talking to have been so similar in journeys on where I've been. And it's funny because, you and I are, we're on different paths because, you have a little bit more knowledge on certain, just in certain areas, just because
Sure.
you do. And that's
Absolutely.
fine, right?
Right.
But I just think it's so cool that, like, I feel, I can feel such a connection with you because I know, those steps that it takes, and if you get in such a bad time, sometimes it's so hard to get your mindset out of it. It's so
Mm-hmm.
hard. It's challenging, not hard. It's challenging because
Yes.
your ego wants to keep telling you this effing sucks and it's going to keep effing suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you want to keep thinking that.
Yep.
So, again, I really appreciate you. And even just listening to you, I'm learning still. I was even taking some notes while you were talking.
Oh, thank you.
So just so you know. But I have just two more questions for you that are just pretty basic questions, and then I think we can wrap it up.
Absolutely.
Um, so I wanted to ask you, first thing is, what excites you the most right now in your life? What would you say?
In general? Hmm.
Yeah, just in general.
Okay. Well, playing the
This is
drums.
this
No.
is a this is a random question for
This
this
is
is a throw off random question.
I think I'll go with two things right here. One is the new folks that I'm meeting. So as I fired off this podcast, good God, what was it? 2 weeks ago now. It was July
Yeah.
27th, right? 2020, that I started this. And of course, before that's when the episodes drop. I probably started working on it, obviously, a long time before that. But a couple of
Mhm.
weeks going into it, I started doing the interviews because I wanted to get ahead. I wanted to have plenty of content to keep sharing. Even if I stopped interviewing today, I probably got about 2 months worth of content to share. And so I was doing all these interviews with some of these amazing people and going, two things. One, they were validating some of the things I knew I already believed in. So they aligned with my who. And then
Yeah.
they were educating me on a step that I'm probably about to take or that I'm taking right now. Right. Some of the things like the three connections I mentioned of John or Tiffany and some of the things she went through. And, there's a gentleman I worked with, Justin Popovich, who will be in an upcoming episode, and how he got to where he's at and, the things he went through. That's those kind of things, those connections, right? Those relationships I'm building now that if I never talk to them again, I've learned something from them. I literally, one of the
Exactly.
coolest things about, I think, having this podcast is the free consultation time I'm getting with each one of these amazing entrepreneurs, right? These people
Yeah,
go out
of
and they charge
course.
people big money to give these tips. And here they are handing them out for free, right? Which is one of the greatest things about engaging with people, that, hey, they're happy to share their knowledge with you, obviously up to a point.
Exactly.
You don't want to abuse it. So that is really, really exciting. And, to back the second piece of that is being able to take that, put my spin on it, or add my point of view, and my experience to it, and then put that out to those that will be willing to listen to me, yourself and anyone else that listens to these kinds of podcasts, or
Mhm.
like my podcast. That really excites me. I can give you a great example. Back in my Coca-Cola days, I was in Toastmasters when I was trying to hone my speaking skills. And I went and I gave this presentation to about 250 people as part of um, a speech contest. It was like a dramatic speech contest. And I gave this speech on and it was almost like I'm saying, learning yourself and then learning where you want to go and become, taking those daily steps to become the person that you want to be. Right. And there was some dramatic examples in there. It was about a long 7-8 minute speech.
Mhm.
Afterwards, and I didn't win the competition, but I had fun doing it. Afterwards,
Yeah.
there was like a little networking. Everyone was kind of hanging around with, hors d'oeuvres and stuff. This young lady came up to me and said, "Oh my God, I was so moved by your speech. I decided to go back to college." I was like, whoa, right? I tried to not make my face look like pure shock, but
Yeah.
you're inside my head's going, "Oh my God, I totally changed."
Explosion.
Yeah, it's like mic drop, right?
Yeah.
Whether and she did actually end up doing it. She ended up joining the club of Toastmasters that I was in, and she ended up going back to school. So she wasn't just saying that to me; she ended up actually taking the action afterwards. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, I just totally altered this core. Well, she took the action, but my words engaged with her to a point where she was like,
Mhm.
okay, I can do this, and she altered her course of life by something I said. And that's really super exciting.
Yeah, oh my gosh. To hit, like, basically telling somebody, "You just inspired me. That was, that was
Right?
amazing." You got this, like, glowing beam of, all around you
It,
at the
it
time.
was, having been on the dark side of the streets, like I told you earlier, it was a whole nother level of high. And I've experienced some of the other ones, right? The
Yeah.
chemically induced ones
Yeah.
are probably down here at level 1 or 2. That was like a 7.
Yeah, hell yeah, definitely. That is like the best. I remember, there hasn't been a ton of people in my life, but anybody that ever says anything, "Oh, you inspired me," or "That was so inspiring." I'm like, "Yeah, like I did
Yeah.
that."
That juices you, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It really does. It really, really does. And that's how I know. that I'm meant to, reach out to people and talk to people, because it gives me such a warm feeling inside to excite people and, make them want to take action like that lady did that you inspired. So
I had, and I know you have one more question, I do believe, but I had someone ask me, oh gosh, I had a podcast a couple of years back that ran for a couple of years, and it was all about just purely focused on personal development. And all I did was get on the mic and talk. But someone
yeah.
came out of one of those podcasts and actually sent me an email and said, "Well, if you died today, what would you want someone to, be a part of your eulogy?" And I said, if my reply was, if one person said I helped them, that's it. If I'm part of
Yeah.
one person's, if you open up a book where they say, "Hey, I'd like to say give thanks to," if I'm in one person's version of that, I could die a happy man.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I agree with you there. I've gotten to that point too where, like, if I helped one person that said, where you, like you said, Tracy, you gave me the light, you gave me the light
Right.
in my life, and that's good enough. I feel you on that one. I agree for
Right
sure.
on.
So the last thing was, I just wanted, because I do this for everybody, anyone that has any sort of business or anything that they give to the world. I
Sure.
don't know if you have anything coming up in the future that people can sign up for. Maybe if you have a really awesome, I mean, you do have this coming up, any awesome episodes coming up that you want to promote or anything like that, just kind of tell people, you know, anything that they can be useful for the community, I should say.
Sure, sure. Obviously, they can come check out any of the past episodes at darkhorseschooling.com, which is the website. And the website isn't all about getting you to buy anything. Really, the website is just about, hey, check out my podcast.
Yeah,
Will there be stuff there someday? Oh, absolutely, it will be. But yeah, I'm just trying to get people some education right now. And I think one of the cool
100%.
ones that's getting ready to come up, I mentioned earlier, is Justin Popovich, and this gentleman has a business that's focused on licensed content, right? It's content. It's a content licensing business. So, if just take a minute of your time, what it is so if you're a coach, or if you're an entrepreneur in some line of business, and you want to create this digital product that you want to sell, like everyone else wants to do out there on the planet, right? Well,
Yeah.
it's gonna take you time to write that, and it's gonna take you time to create the graphics, or it's gonna take you money to pay someone else to do it. Well, Justin has this really cool business where he has a website full of licensed content. And there's varying levels of it, and he's got like over 500 pieces of content. So when I say licensed content, I mean a lot of it. And I wouldn't have brought him on my show if I didn't believe in it. And I've actually used some of his content in the past. And I'll give you an example. There was one
Yeah.
when I was doing my previous podcast. I wanted to do this New Year's resolution piece of content where
Yeah.
we all know we've all had the resolutions, and by February we've forgotten about them. So I was trying to go to my audience with a piece of content that might help them get a little further than February 2nd.
Yeah.
And he had this piece of content that was out there it was amazing. It was called the Resolution Revolution, and I was like, oh, this is like perfect. So literally, I bought that, and I think back, this was probably 8 years ago. I probably paid $97 for it, and I went through and I read it, and I checked out everything, and all I had to do was go through and rewrite parts of it, so it was coming from my point of view. There was a couple of tactics. It was like, well, I'm not cool with this. I might use it as an example, or say, or you could try this, but here's how I would do it. Bang, 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 bang. And I was able to edit this content in about, I want to say a weekend, but that might be a little exaggerating. It was probably about 4 days. Um, and then I just had I used my version of Paint, Adobe Photoshop, and altered the graphics a little bit. I didn't change a whole lot about it. I just made it a little more personal to me. So if someone else had bought the same piece and one of my customers ran across it, they're going, "Okay, you didn't create this, right?" And then I put it out there, right? And it was amazing. I started off with a webinar saying, here's what we're going to go through. And I gave the free webinar and say, all right. And this is back when webinars weren't super popular. Like I said, this was 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And so I gave this free webinar and folks came in and it says, and I took them through the outline. So if they didn't even buy anything, they got the value of try these 10 steps. And, oh, by the way, if you want to go to the next level, boom, here you go. And it came with videos and the whole 9 yards. And I paid $97 for it and I sold it for that same price. And I probably only sold about 40 copies, but I only spent, like I said, maybe 4 days. And if I put it in hours, right, it may have been, let's say, 30 hours of time. So 30 hours of time got me, 40 times 97. So almost 400, 4,000. And so this licensed content, and I'm not talking about the cheapy stuff that we see out there. Oh, get all these 47 articles, 147 articles for $7. No, right? I'm talking about real. He has a team of folks that go out and they do the research and they write the content, and they're good at the language, and they a graphics team and yada yada. And he started off doing it himself. Right. Him and his partner. And then he built a team saying, okay, we can't keep up with this pace. Just you and I doing it, and then, they brought in this person and then another person. And now he just, goes out and sells it. And it's an amazing business model. And it's great for entrepreneurs that are looking to get that first product, but they don't quite have enough oomph to write it. And, they say, okay, open up Word. And there's that blank screen looking at them going, blink, blink. Blink, right? So I mean, it gives you that starter idea, and if you're just going to take it and copy it and throw it up on your website, then you're probably going to get as much out of it as you put into it. Where, like I said, I took the time and I turned it into my voice. A lot of it stayed the same, but there was a lot of the content where I was like, oh no, I would say it like this and I would say it like that.
Right.
And here was the cool thing I found. Once I started making the changes, it just started to flow out of me. It was like the creative block was gone. And so I got way more than the $97 I paid for it. And I'm not talking about in the sales. I was just talking about it. Oh my gosh, this is a great way to do this. Yada, yada, yada. And there's like, just seeing how he had it all laid out. My next product I did fully on my own using that same kind of architecture that he had in that product. I'm like, okay, this is amazing. So it gave me way more than what I paid for it in education and experience, and as well as, obviously the monetary value of the sales. So when I started signing folks up, I reached out to him and he was very happy. He's a very humble person. So he's very happy to come on, and he shares some excellent, information about, being an entrepreneur and, again, teaming with people and, how he built it up from nothing. And, one of the things he talks about is, the value of marketing and documenting and systematizing your business as you get bigger, so that if you hand it to someone else, right? Hey, Katie, here's what I want you to do. Here's the document. Right? Whether that document's a video or an actual, Word document, you could now do what I want you to do, even after I've stopped training you and I go to my office. What was it he said? You could review the document and what have you. So, I think, and this is a long-winded answer. I apologize, but that's
okay.
That's the kind of people I like bringing on that will share these kind of things. And I got one guy coming up shortly after that, Ray the video guy, right? So now we're going to talk about videos and that one's probably about a month away, but these are the kind of folks that you're going to get these nuggets. They're going to share their personal development. They'll share their stories, but then they're towards, the back half, like we've been doing, they'll be dropping these knowledge bombs that if you listen for them, you're like, oh my gosh, I could do that.
Yeah.
Right. You make that note, you put it on your calendar and you go out and you start doing it.
Yeah. No, I definitely am interested in listening to that podcast, because that's an area that I could definitely improve on, is the actual, because I can content create and do that, but to actually do it like for me personally, for myself, for my brand, I need to learn still, which Like we talked about, we all
It
do, right?
it's an amazing stepping stone. And some people might call it cheating, and I think it's only cheating if you do, like I said, oh, I'm going to buy this and I'm just going to throw it up on my website, and maybe I'll send traffic to
Yeah.
it. Okay, that's cheating because now you haven't added anything to it, right? I want, if your market is interested in you, and I'll use you, Katie, and you would do that, they would go to this and say, wow, this doesn't sound like anything, like any of her podcasts or any of the posts I've seen. What's going, and
Right.
that
Exactly.
disconnect, now you've disconnected them from who you are. Where if you get the product and do like I said, and start rewriting, it's, oh wow, this is great, or oh, I would never say this, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
And then you could say,
Yeah.
if say, if they say do steps 2, 4, 7, and you're like, no, I think it should be 1, 2, 4. You could say, do what steps 1, 2, 4. Oh, some people may prefer to do 2, 4, 7. As you know, that's not my style, but I'm trying to be all inclusive. So you could still keep it in there, but make sure it sounds like you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to get the link, or, figure out how to get hooked up with that, because I'm definitely interested in learning more about that myself.
You got it. Absolutely. It will, that one's going to be dropping this Monday, this coming Monday. So that,
Oh, yay. Okay,
yeah, so that one's
awesome.
right around the corner.
Yeah.
Let's see,
Well,
that
that's
might,
exciting.
yeah, I'm stoked about that
That's
one.
so exciting. I'm so exciting. Okay, well, I do not have anything else for you today. I am more than appreciative of you coming on today. You have given, this is definitely a very, I would call it inspiring, and I'm loving who I'm bringing on the show, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and give what
Well,
you have to give.
I definitely appreciate you inviting me on and listen to me babble for a while.
Yeah.